Hey guys, I just want to let you know that I am now a certified spiritual life coach. If you resonate with the topics and lessons that my guests and I discuss on my podcast, and you feel that you could use some empowerment and direction in your journey of becoming who you truly are, consider booking a free discovery call with me on my website at kindlemccullough.com. And now on to the episode. Hey guys, I'm excited today. I have my friend Ozzie Santos, another live podcast. Trying a little different video setup today for those who are watching the video. Ozzie, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to share this.
Yeah, me and Ozzie have known each other for a long time, been basketball buddies, share a love of basketball, but we also are artists, and Ozzie has written a poem that she's going to share today, and we're going to talk about unconditional love.
Yeah. The poem is called What is Unconditional Love? And a little bit of a background.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it is about a past relationship, and this particular person, I would say, has many reasons to dislike me, maybe, hate me, though hate is a strong word. And she chooses not to. She's always seen a light in me. She's always believed in me. And I believe her extension of love, her capacity to love, the light that woman has like truly changed me. And so this poem is dedicated and inspired by that relationship with her. And it is a promise to myself that the changes that I want to make, these positive ones, again, that were influenced by her, that I am committed to them. So this poem's a really big deal, and I'm so excited to share. There are 4 sections, technically 5, but 4, in which I'll ask for your help. I will need you to ask me, what is unconditional love? In which case, I will respond with a term that I have associated with unconditional love. I will explain why I chose that term, and then it will come with a gift or a lesson. I will have 4 sections of that. Okay, I think I'm ready.
Awesome.
Okay.
What is unconditional love?
Threatening, because it's drawn to you. It's drawn to you because it is you. Sometimes you need to be reminded so it reveals itself through another person. This is where projections can present themselves. You feel threatened by this messenger of love, and you say things that you don't mean, or rather, you say things that you mean to say to yourself. The gift here is the opportunity to be unafraid of the deepest parts of love, from others, and most importantly, from yourself.
What is unconditional love?
It's educational because it's a mirror. It reflects your shortcomings and gives you the opportunity to explore your mind and your heart. Oftentimes in its presence, you won't like what you think you are, and without the proper tools to acknowledge and process, it can be triggering. Nonetheless, a person with clear intentions of being good in the ways that they feel the most aligned will ultimately feel gratitude for getting to see the sublime truth that who they've been, who they are, and who they can be are all one, you. Here, the lesson is to welcome change.
What is unconditional love?
Happy. It's happy to be the space in which you are the most comfortable sharing the ugliest parts of you. It believes in you because it sees the goodness in you. It knows you are goodness. It shines a light over all of your darkness. You felt it before, a something or someone that you want to be better for. Unconditional love asks you to be happy, not superficially happy, but truly happy. It asks you to embrace grace.
What is unconditional love?
Boundaries. It's counterintuitive, I know, but when healthy, boundaries convey an inner knowing of oneself. It is comfortable and strong enough in its own knowing of what it can provide and sustain. They require a healthy self-love, respect, and discipline to erect and maintain. Sometimes it seems like a separation is occurring, but that's a trick. And the beauty of it, you get to realize that love can still be received and given, even when it doesn't look or feel like it. The gift here is the lesson in the fact that love permeates through all. So thank you, unconditional love. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you for your forgiving and not forgetting. Thank you for showing me who I am and believing in me. Because if I got it, it's unconditional love that brought it, baby. Thank you.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. There's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah, there what's really beautiful about this particular poem is that it's so coded. Um, it I won't reveal all of the codes because only one person can receive 100% of it, and that's her. Um, there are lines riddled within each section that are specific callbacks to a memory that I have with her. Um, and and so even though you can hear it as an audience member and can still relate to it, you're not receiving 100% because that memory is only something that I share with one person. And I'm just so, even like there are times in which I felt like, damn, am I making this a big deal? And it isn't a big deal. And should I be embarrassed? And maybe it's not that good. But just for the fact that it's coded in the way that it is, and the fact that when I created it, there's a story that we could get into there, but that I truly believe that it was channeled. And just for those two facts alone, the coding of it that seems a little secretive, and the aspect of it that I feel is like fully channeled, that I'm proud of it. But I also know it's good because it speaks to so much. And I just love answering the question, what is unconditional love? Because obviously I'm only giving you 4 sections and it's so expansive, but I try my best to like cover so much of it. Yeah, I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, I think that what makes writing really powerful and your poem really powerful is the experiences that we go through that makes it personal, that makes it special and connects our hearts, gets beyond just the logical mind and to particular, like, this is my lived experiences. This is what I've learned through the ups and downs, through the hard and the good. And then it also is timeless in that anybody who's experienced love and is learning about that can relate. And so you have your particular context, but they can also hear it and relate it to their particular context, and it hits home and brings us together in that oneness.
Oh my God, that would feel so good. Like, that's what's so funny. I've been so focused on like what it means to me. And this is like the second time that I've heard from someone that was like, oh, I'm so curious how other people interpret it once I have it written down. And that's so wild because even in the way that I have it structured, like it's obvious that there are some parts that rhyme, but there's like that like end towards the line, but there's like it's like syncopated in particular sections that within the line is the rhyming that kind of like pushes it along. And I feel that I'm the only one that can read it and deliver it the way it has to be. But I'm so curious how others are going to read it one day.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, there's a the are we have to go through the sections?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm so curious. So like the first word that I choose, threatening.
Yes.
One of my I purposely chose that word or decided to start it off with that because why is unconditional love threatening? It's like my way of trying to get you to truly listen now.
Right, because it piques your interest, or even like makes people like, what? That doesn't, they don't agree with it or something like that. So then they're really invested into it.
Yeah. So it's like, what's so threatening about it? And what's threatening about it is when I talk about how it's drawn to you because it is you. sometimes you need to be reminded so it reveals itself through another person. When an individual that you come to love reveals themselves to you, and you are not in the space in which you've even come to realize how many things you need to work on to not only give yourself love, but to give another person love. And not to be confused with this idea that you can reach this perfect version of you individually. Like oftentimes another person is required to to show your gaps. And so when I say you feel threatened by this messenger of love and you say things that you don't mean, or this is where projections can present themselves. If those things aren't dealt with or you haven't put work into them, then you're going to project. And without that filter of awareness, like I am projecting right now, you don't even get to the core of what you're doing, why you're saying what you're saying, what you're doing, what you're doing.
Yeah. Whenever I heard you talk about that section, what came to mind is like vulnerability. And I understand what you're getting at because I've had a couple of girlfriends, and there's inner work and solo things you can do for yourself, but there's nothing like a relationship to really bring to light all your faults and all your shortcomings, and everything comes to the surface.
Oh yeah. And what was it? When you feel threatened by this messenger of love and you say things you don't mean, or rather you say things that you mean to say to yourself. The gift here is the opportunity to be unafraid of the deepest parts of love from others, and most importantly from yourself. So it's almost like in the projections of this person that's here to like love you or show you how deeply you can be loved and how deserving of love that you are. You're almost focused on, oh, I need to love her the best, or I need to love him the best. But it always has to come back to how important it is that like you have to find the love for yourself to extend it as well as you can to another person.
Right. Because if you don't love yourself, then you think that it's to be found externally, and then you're relying on that person to be like your savior, really. And that's so much pressure, and it's more than any person can live up to. And so then obviously they're not going to meet that, and then you're going to disappoint you, and you're going to think it's their fault.
Yeah. And then you something happens within the relationship, maybe you carry the trauma, and then it moves into the next relationship, which it then starts the cycle again of projecting when someone was here to try to give you a message of love. And sometimes that reminder is like, ooh, this is what happened in the last relationship, so can we do something about it? So that word threatened comes from someone who I realize now in myself that I didn't do that work. I didn't realize how deep the rabbit hole went to what I was pulling from to project all the internal pressures that I had placed on myself, and then inadvertently or inevitably onto somebody else.
Yeah, 100%. And talking about projections, the ego, it hides its issues deep down because it's painful, because it's vulnerable. And so then when we're with someone else, it's harder to hide those things. And so we're going to take up the call to admit to them and to ourselves what's really going on, instead of projecting, hey, it's your fault, or you're being this way, I need you to change so that I don't have to feel these negative things, or change myself in a way that's painful.
Exactly. And even that has layers to it, because like, one, do you have the awareness and like the to be that vigilant in your own mind? Like, are you able to not only like communicate the emotions and the thoughts that you have within your mind, and then do you have the ability to communicate them to somebody else? And then can that person receive? And then can that person communicate? And so like the layers that are necessary to really unravel whenever someone doesn't have that work behind them, or the ability, or has shown themselves that they can do it. Like if they don't have that, then you're going to feel threatened.
Do y'all have the safety to hold for each other? Do you have the patience? Do you have the grace?
Perfect. Yeah. That's what that space is all about. I was really happy about that section. It's hard to declare which one's my favorite. But but I really, really loved starting with
Mm-hmm.
threatening. And
Yeah.
does it make sense to you?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
100%.
Cool.
You want to go on the second one?
Yeah. So the second one is educational because it's a mirror. It reflects your shortcomings and gives you the opportunity to explore your mind and your heart. Oftentimes, in its presence, you won't like what you think you are. Sometimes I want to stop at that line and repeat it again because it's sometimes in its presence, you won't like what you think you are. When you're given a mirror, a true reflection, and you have yet to really face like the things that you've done in your past, then you in my case start to swear that you're seeing a monster, and that and when I say oftentimes in its presence you won't like what you think you are, it means like if you're not seeing yourself as human who's capable of making mistakes, if you're not able to see that you're a human who's gone through particular issues, trauma, circumstances that are so unique to your experience, if you can't extend yourself understanding, then you're not seeing yourself as in my opinion who you truly are, which is a beautiful, unique, loving soul that deserves to be loved as well, inherently. So
Yeah. I think we all have our subjective lens of how we look at things. We look at ourselves. We look at the experience we've been through, and also we have our expectations of what we think the relationship is, what we think love is, the way it should be played out, the way I should get love, the way I show love to others, and how I think they should receive that. But they also have those things, and they might not line up with yours.
totally.
And so then you get into the relationship, and you get to a deeper communication and everything, and you go through that honeymoon phase, and everything's amazing, and then you start to see each other's differences and perceptions, and then you got to really decide, are you going to do the work to communicate, to talk about what's your perspective, what's my perspective, and how can we reconcile those things? How can we find a middle ground? How can we try to find the truth beyond each one of our perceptions?
And that choice that you highlighted there, I think that's the part in a relationship that's the hardest, because it always wants to seem or feel like it has to be like lovey-dovey, that honeymoon
It has to be
phase the whole
easy.
time. Yeah, it has to be easy.
If it's not easy, what is this real love?
And that choice is so difficult. I can't even say that I've like actively have made that, but that goes back to the self-love thing. If I'm not practiced in choosing to love another person, I'm probably also not practiced in choosing to love myself consistently. So if I could be consistent in the choosing of myself in love, then I could be that much more confident that I could make those choices in the loving of somebody else. When I talk about, again, like oftentimes you won't like what you think you are, and without the proper tools to acknowledge and process, it can be triggering. Nonetheless, when you don't have those proper tools to acknowledge and I'm talking about, like, are you emotionally intelligent? And that is such a deep rabbit hole in and of itself. Like, I've come to realize in these reflections of, why I've done what I've done, and why I think the way that I think back and realize like I've always been a deeply emotional person. When people see me enjoy, which is obviously something that I could slip into very easily, it's deep and I can like spread it to others, but that's as deep on how low I can go.
Right.
And that is, and again, without the proper tools to acknowledge and process, it can be triggering. Now you're in a space that's consistently triggering you. And let's say in the worst case scenario, you have like a child with this person, or a hard scenario is just living with that person. Like, where do you find the space to not be triggered? And again, and if you're in a consistently in an unhealthy space, you're going to blow up, and those blow ups can look many ways. And Yeah, I also think this like mirror idea and this opportunity for education to explore your mind and your heart. I'm in true belief that you could have multiple soulmates in one life. You could be lucky enough to meet multiple, and it doesn't mean that a romantic connection has to be the case with someone who's truly a soulmate. And it is my belief that with this person, that she was a soulmate, because from the very beginning, I I felt like I couldn't lie to her, which was terrible to be in the action of. Um, and so even there were times in which I couldn't even look her in the eyes the way I used to. Um, and I think that's a powerful mirror.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there's a great concept like in Christianity called Imago Dei, and that's looking at people through the eyes, seeing the image of God within them.
Mm.
And so I think that's part of that choice, to see God, to
Ooh.
see the good inside of them, and to believe them. And that also goes for yourself. And I think talking about the tools, that's a big part of the tools, to acknowledge where we fall short in our, mistakes and everything like that, and also acknowledge that our partner has that too, but recognize that we have that goodness and God within us, that that helps us be able to acknowledge the bad or the mistakes, all those things, because it's like we have that, but we also have this greater, deeper goodness side of us, so we don't have to freak out like, oh, this is all I am. All I am is a mistake or bad or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Oh, kitty.
Cat wants to join in.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that filter. I find that to be like, it's just, it provides an opportunity to just kind of treat somebody differently than you would normally. What was it? To acknowledge and process, it can be triggering. Nonetheless, a person with clear intentions of being good in the ways that they feel the most aligned will ultimately feel gratitude for getting to see the sublime truth. Okay, now that I'm saying, like, breaking this down, I think this is my favorite section. The To acknowledge and process, it can be triggering. Nonetheless, a person with clear intentions of being good in the ways that they feel the most aligned. Alignment can feel different for every individual. And one thing that I've been working on is like, what does alignment mean for me outside of like the pressures that I've internalized of like external views of my life from society. So I want to be clear and telling somebody that I'm not, through the poem, that I'm not saying that there's a particular alignment that you have to achieve, but it helps to know what it means for you to be in alignment.
Yeah.
And when I say a person with clear intentions of being good, sometimes, especially like, let's say in the form of an addict, there's going to be many times in which their actions will tell you or even make you feel as if they're not even trying to get better. And like sometimes when you're looking, let's say, through that lens of like seeing God within them, right? It's that focus, and I know that they have their intention of being good. Yes, I know those, like, the actions aren't in alignment, but I know that that person has intentions, and it's clear to me, with clear intentions of being good in the ways that they feel the most aligned, will ultimately feel gratitude. Because once you are in alignment and you are shown these things, then the natural occurrence will be the feeling of gratitude for being shown it. To get to see the sublime truth that who they've been, who they are, and who they can be are all one, you. That oftentimes when you are thinking about what you've done and in this past version of you, that you want to detach yourself from that person. And sometimes that will put you into the space in which you can't do the work that was necessary to actually integrate that person in a positive way. And so when I think about this sublime truth, it's how often it is that we want to separate ourselves, or even thinking about future Ozzie may detach me from present Ozzie. The fact is that all three of them are living within you at this exact moment.
Yeah, that's beautiful. One thing that came to mind is just like, we're each other's cheerleaders. So when we see the best in each other, when we make mistakes, sometimes we lose that in ourselves. We lose the belief that we can be good, or we can reach our goals, or we can be our future desired selves. But if the other person can hold that space for us and believe that in us and see that in us and encourage us in that when we fall short, and they still have that, that is so powerful.
So powerful. And like,
and that helps us keep going and actually get there.
Yeah. The gift or the lesson here, right? And I specifically wanted to use lesson for this one instead of gift because it was educational.
Mm-hmm.
The lesson is to welcome change, right? So coming back to, you're exploring your mind and your heart, you're realizing that you're the past version, you're this present version, you're the future version, you're that you're acknowledging the tools, and you're having to integrate these tools to really make these changes. Changing is hard, but you have to welcome it.
Yeah, it's the same thing we talk about in coaching. Like, in relationship, it's gonna take change. It's gonna take growth. So, are you gonna choose to take that path, or are you gonna run from it and detach? Like you're saying, like when things are hard, we want to just go inside. We want to escape. We don't want to talk. We don't want to have to go through the hard things. But I think as I've gotten older and healed and grown, I've been able to face the things I don't want to face more often and deal with it sooner, and also it be less of a big deal in my mind.
Change is so hard.
Yeah.
Man, I'm telling you.
And it's easier to talk about it than to do it.
Sure. and it varies for everyone.
Right.
And how many things need to change at a given time varies for everyone. It just happens to be in 2024. I felt like upwards of 20 things were revealed, to the point that like 100% vigilance is necessary to like pull out this old foundational soil and then put in new soil and then like water it consistently. But it's like there's still dead things in there I forgot to scrape out or something, like, because it just keeps, oh my god, 2024 almost killed me. Almost killed me, man. But yeah, welcome change. Welcome change.
Yeah, 100%. So I think a lot of times when people think about relationships, they think, I'm going to find this person that loves me so much the way I am, and then we'll just be the way we are and we love each other. And it's like, that's partially true. You learn to love each other for who you are, but that actually lays the foundation for then to change and grow and become better. And that's what happens if it's a healthy relationship.
Yes.
Or it becomes stagnant.
And I would say even through an unhealthy relationship, of the eventual leaving of said that, or even during it, provides opportunities for lessons and change. Like, I am convinced that this is my favorite section. This is my favorite section. This is my favorite section. The third one.
Sorry. There's one more thing I thought about. You're talking about alignment. Yes. I think it's important in relation to one word I use is like values. So alignment, values. What is your deep core truths that you don't compromise about? And do you share those with your partners? Because you have to figure out, there's things that we may disagree on. There's things that we can do differently, whatever. But there's some things, the core things, I think you have to agree on. You have to be in alignment with together, or it's not going to work.
Yeah. Big things that come to mind here are like, I don't know, like religion, politics, stuff like that. And I might have a surprising answer for you here. At this point in my life, I want to remove anything that I have felt is not mine. Again, I refer to these as like internalized pressures from external views. And so, yes, I've thought about how it would be a really important factor to bring up something like, what are our beliefs, what are our values, but I don't even want to put those pressures, or I don't want to engage in that, because when I have those thoughts, it makes me feel like within the first couple of dates I have to go over these things.
Right.
And I'm trying to live in a space in which I'm not only removing pressures from myself, but I'm like, want to remove any pressures that I have of external relationships. So it also feels like when I think like that, that it's being internalized in me as if I don't have much time left to make a decision like this. And I might be 33, but I don't want to feel as if I don't have time to like just go slow and have those things reveal themselves to me
right
when I meet somebody.
Yeah. Okay, so in my words, what I'm hearing you're saying, what I'm picking up, or what I believe about this is, like, when you say religion, politics, even for me, I'm like, there's a lot of things people say like they believe, or I align with this, or all these external personas or words people associate with their deepest beliefs. But to me, I'm like, those aren't even the deepest things. Tell me your what's behind like religion, politics, like the values,
Ooh.
like truth or love or grace or authenticity. And people can say, I find these values in this religion or in this political party, but that's not even the deepest thing. That's more surface than these deep. And I'm like, for me, in my journey, I found these deep values in different places. And so I don't associate these values with a particular religion, with a particular political party. And so I'm like, I want to continue to get to know you more so I can see beyond the surface associations, the values behind it. And even then, what does that mean to you, and how does that play out in your life? And then also, then it goes to like the relationship where you're like, okay, I have this, these values, and I have this idea, but how am I actually living it out? Where am I falling short? And actually, but also living it out. And then, so you hold grace and you hold nuance as you get to know someone more, instead of being like, automatically, if you're with this political party or this religion or whatever, then I'm out because I don't agree. Instead of like, you know what, you could actually agree when you get to the deeper layer of values.
Yeah, I like this thought. Like to me, like I think why I've tried to stray away from this is because, like, when I'm constructing a list, it's difficult to not like try to transpose these like values on like another individual. I think you can do it in a healthy way with the understanding that whatever values that you are highlighting within them have infinite spectrums of expression. And so like, okay, what part of this spectrum are you looking for? And you're not too much like, what would be the word I'm looking for? Like the hole of a needle is what I'm thinking of. Like you're
the eye of the
yeah. Like you're kind of like pinholing or whatever,
right?
Like a small portion of infinite
Yeah,
spectrum.
yeah. So what I'm hearing is like people like, write a list of what you want in a spouse, and I'm like, I think that's good to a certain degree, but I'm also like, oh, I could have an introverted girl, I could have an extroverted girl, and I'm like, I see pros and cons in both sides, and so I'm like, I'm not set on it has to be this certain way. I'm open to what I say God leads me to, and it could be either way. You know, I'm not so set in, or if I think authenticity is this certain thing, but they showed me a different side to it that I don't even know about. So I'm staying open to beyond my perception and what God can teach me and the ways it can express itself in other people. Like, you're a very extroverted person, I'm more of an introverted, and you have your ways of expressing, I have my ways of expressing, and they're both beautiful in their own ways.
Totally. No, I love that. That would be, in my opinion, the verbalizing of the healthiest way of looking at a list, right? Like when I think about, like, I want someone who communicates well, right? Like that word or that phrase can have me think that they have to communicate in the way that I communicate,
right,
or some particular way, right? But I have to still hold space that, like, okay, not everybody communicates a particular way. Like, don't block myself from understanding this person if they are truly making attempts to communicate with me. You know, so that would be one way. That would be one thing that I would focus on, while also maintaining the worry that I wouldn't want to like pigeonhole. That's what it was, like pigeonhole this thing and be like, it has to look a certain way. You know, another part is like, oh, like I want someone who looks at life in like a joyous, positive way. Like, I've had relationships with people where they need to vent, understandably so, right? But it's so natural to them to follow it up with like, oh, these were the good parts of my day, or this is where I'm grateful. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anybody who doesn't do that, but whenever someone, you know, presents that positivity, but not in a toxic way, like trying to engulf you and like only positivity should exist,
right,
but like in a real way that it's beautiful, and it reminds you like, oh, you know, like this reminds me of one of the phrases that I just dislike so much, when someone just goes like, same shit different day. And I'm just like, dude, no, like it's not the same. There's like fundamentally that's not true, right? And so I could see where someone who would resonate with something like that and repeat it in their lives, like I wouldn't find that to be the most attractive, right? But I wouldn't believe it's not that I would say that they're incapable of like, you know, changing a perspective, nor am I going to look down on them having that perspective, but I am going to like make mine known and say it's different, bro.
Right.
You
right.
know?
Yeah.
But yeah, healthy way of, I guess, with lack of a better term, like constructing a list.
Yeah.
But
great stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know the third section?
Yeah. Third section is happy. Happy to be the space in which you feel the most comfortable sharing the ugliest parts of you. It believes in you because it sees the goodness in you. It knows you are goodness. It shines a light over all of your darkness. This one means so much to me because there are times in which if again you're not in this like healthy space and unconditional love threatens you and like you haven't done the work and blah 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 blah, you're gonna reveal parts of yourself in your projections that isn't gonna look too good. And this one I'll share in terms of like the coding. There was a moment in this relationship that this poem was inspired by, in which I had an episode, and when I was able to snap out of it, which was so maddening, like I was just like, I'm so sorry, like, you know, I don't mean those things. And I could only imagine how, you know, confusing that was for her, as badly as she wants to like be there for me. And what she would say is, or what she said at that moment was, I'm grateful that you feel comfortable enough showing those parts of you. And like, wow, like what a light to be under. Like what an extension of love that someone can give, that even when you're showing the ugliest parts of you, they're not seeing that. They're seeing the truth behind it. They're seeing the goodness behind you. And that's why when I follow it up with like, it believes in you because it sees the goodness in you. It knows you are goodness. It shines a light over all of your darkness. You felt it before, a something or someone that you want to be better for. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and therapy and coaching, when you talk about, you know, your wounds and triggers and how a lot of that relates to your childhood and what you've gone through, and you're shaped a certain way, and then you have these perceptions, or it when certain circumstances happen, it's a projection back to your childhood, and then you're triggered back to that experience and where those wounds are. And so I think a relationship, it calls us to kind of take on that mindset, like understanding that that's not all who you are, and also that relates to something that maybe barely has anything to do with them. And so if they act a certain way, that it's not even about that experience, it's about how that reminds us of a past experience. And so if they can hold grace that this isn't about me, this isn't something, yeah, I've done so much. And so when we start to be open to each other's wounds and our sensitivities and stuff like that, and so we can hold space for those things, and we can start to like, I know you're sensitive about this, so I'm going to be careful about this, or do this differently, or say things differently. But, you know, again, see the best in you. And I think over time that them holding space for you in that respect then helps you heal that, and it no longer holds such a sway.
Yeah, I think what calls to mind as I hear it too is just like I feel like I have to highlight that it's much easier said than done.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because oh my god,
it's a long process.
Yeah, it's such a process. And again, like to have been given such a line, you know, and like, and you know, pulling back the curtain. Like, imagine that I could logically like tell you that this person never lied to me, that this person loves me, but that I could be so lost in my jealousies and my insecurities or my sensitivities that I can't even touch that space, that I could logically say it out loud, but I can't feel it and I can't believe it. And it's just like, wow, that's the depths that I can go to. Like, what tools can I use to prevent myself from going so deep that I can't even touch a love that I know exists? A maddening space.
Yeah.
Absolutely maddening space.
And I think there's one level where if one person triggered, the other person holding space for them regardless. But the biggest test is when you both get triggered in both of your own wounds. Are you gonna still come back? Are you still gonna make it work through that?
And you would never want to like weaponize the idea, like right there in the moment, be like, "This is your childhood trauma," right? Because it's like, it's not just, there's layers, like you can get there.
You can't invalidate their feelings in the moment either.
Yeah. And then sometimes it's not like, it's not as if it could just be this one triggered memory that can just unlock and everything unravels. God, that'd be so good, because oftentimes it's probably a set amount of circumstances that happened often enough. And so they were all different. They all like were triggered differently. The parents acted differently, or whoever your caretaker was. Like, it's so nuanced. And I think that's why in this space it's and especially in the next one when we get to the fourth term, like I just have to reiterate that it's like hard and it's so nuanced and it's so different for everybody. But
100%.
yeah, this was the shortest section, and the final lesson is it. I go, unconditional love asks you to be happy, not superficially happy, but truly happy. It asks you to embrace grace. This one I kind of stepped away from the gift lesson idea, because I've now called unconditional love to be asking you something, right? So I didn't want to repeat unconditional love again, because a few lines prior, just the line prior, I go, unconditional love asks you to be happy, not superficially happy. Like with me as an extroverted individual, how often it is that people can see my outside persona and believe like I probably have no problems, I'm a happy individual, but like when what unconditional love is like asking for is not like what it looks like on the outside, but how it truly feels on the inside. And so it's not like it could see through superficial happiness. It wants you to be truly happy. And what it gifts you in that space, or what I believe she gifted me in that space, is the asking of me to embrace grace.
Yeah, that's the hard part about relationships, and the deeper the relationship, the more they're gonna sniff out the BS and be like, I see this as superficial, and can you be happy truly inside at your depth? And again, you said like it's an action, it's a choice. A lot of people think of love, they just think of the romantic and the romance phase, the honeymoon phase, and they think that's what love should be. But it's going to be ups and downs. Your emotions aren't always going to feel positive. It's not always going to feel great. But can you take the action to choose the love and to choose that happiness, whether or not external circumstances are great or you feel that emotionally so much? So like happiness it's deeper than just the emotion. It's the choosing and the seeing despite feeling negative emotions.
Yeah. It's what I just can't help, like when I go back into this space, but think about like how grateful I am for this woman. I'm like, geez. And she wouldn't even consider herself to be like the most spiritual person, but it is so obvious to me that she is, and that she channels it so well.
I think sometimes those people are the best because it's like they're not so identified with a certain
100%.
Like I'm spiritual, whatever, but they're just authentically that.
100%. And like I will have the opportunity either through this poem or in person to be able to tell her that and really highlight that, like, wow, what a beautiful aspect you have of yourself. Like, what a gift that it came so natural to you, and like believe in that gift. Even that's another one of my goals with this whole thing, is that often I'm not saying that I wasn't hurt in particular ways, but like that doesn't matter. Like what matters is what I did. Right now in this moment, what matters is what I did. And if there's any way that I could express to this person in such a way that I could lessen like these things that she could potentially bring to a future relationship, like that would feel so good, because I don't want to do that to someone that truly just tried to love me, So,
I think it's so great that like I feel like I try to embody this too in appreciating past relationships and what they've taught us, despite if they didn't work, despite issues or their own issues as well as ours. I think some people, they have a breakup or some things that went wrong, and they just kind of bury that or forget that person. But it's like there's always lessons to be learned, and we can be grateful that even if it was a painful lesson. So to be grateful, I think that's a great quality to have.
100%. Yeah. So the happy section is the shortest section, but pretty powerful nonetheless. Still
a lot of depth.
Fourth term, boundaries. This was actually the first one that in all four that I wrote about. And this one's a big one for me because, growing up, my parents worked from like 7, 8 in the morning till like 8, 9, 10 in the evening. I'm an only child. I did a lot of things by myself. Whereas other people maybe live in more restrictive households, and they could learn boundaries that way. Because of my freedom, the only way I learned about boundaries was either rubbing up against them or pushing them down. And that has come to haunt me in many ways, and like my adult self. But boundaries are interesting because when I say boundaries, I mentioned the word healthy a couple times, that they require healthy self-love, respect, and discipline to erect and maintain. Or when healthy, boundaries convey an inner knowing of oneself. There are times in which people use boundaries to escape potential lessons, that they don't want to go through resistance. And I would say that would be an example in which boundaries aren't being healthily erected.
Yeah, I think it's funny talking about your upbringing. My upbringing was, my parents were, very involved. I was homeschooled for a little bit, but it was almost like an overboard, too much over me, and expecting me to be a certain way that I wasn't taught boundaries, and I wasn't taught to have boundaries for myself, and that I could respect myself enough to believe that I should have boundaries, or that I can stand up for myself. And so I had to learn that over time. But with that then comes like when I do need boundaries, then I respond in unhealthy ways, like too much anger, or like projection again, it's your fault, or blah blah blah, instead of being like, okay, this is what's going on with me, I need to set this boundary and express myself, and respect myself, and also embody that, so then other people will feel that. Sometimes you need sometimes when people talk about boundaries a lot, they talk about like expressing that to other people, but a lot of times boundaries are just the way you embody yourself, and other people feel that, and they respond to that, and there's a natural healthy boundary without even needing to say anything.
Yeah, I actually prefer that when it's like felt.
Yes.
Although I do think it is important sometimes to like say it out loud. But again, like when healthy, boundaries convey an inner knowing of oneself. They are strong, they are comfortable and strong enough in their own knowing of what they can provide and sustain. Again, that's like in the healthiest of ways, right? Because sometimes you persist in a space in which you were no longer able to sustain. And that again is when projections will start going both ways. But I think my favorite part about this boundaries space is I say, it may seem like a separation is occurring, but that's a trick. And the beauty of it, you get to realize that love can still be received and given even when it doesn't look or feel like it. Oftentimes when we think about a boundary, the imagery that comes to mind is a wall. There's a separation that's occurring. But if you truly believe in the last lesson that I provide in this, which is something that I believe, that the gift here is the lesson in the fact that love permeates through all. That even in this seemingly separation that's occurring because of this boundary that's become erected, that love is still being extended. Because if love was ever felt between another person, and that in that moment can never be taken away. That moment exists through all time. And so, yes, it may change, just as all relationships change. And it may not look the way you want it to, and it may not feel the way you want it to. But even if that person says out loud that they dislike you, that moment again exists, and that love is so real, and it permeates through all.
I love that. I know in the past I've thought about relationships or even just friendships or talking to this girl and the good times we had, and then things go awry for whatever reason, and they're like, I don't like you or whatever, and I felt so bad. But as I've grown and developed more self-love, it's like, you know what, there was beautiful moments, and whether or not they acknowledge that, I can appreciate that.
What a beautiful thing to get to that space, because again, like, what we're also highlighting is like expectation. When something isn't looking the way you want it to, when it isn't feeling the way you want it to, like, you're saying out loud there are expectations that you're having on what it should look like and what it should feel like. But regardless of that, I'm gonna say it again: love permeates through all.
Yeah, and the thing too, like with boundaries, you know, that say I like my partner gets triggered and she's like, I need space or something. Then you feel like, oh, there's that wall, there's that separation, there's a breaking of love. But, you know, thinking about it, they are saving you from their, you know, their trigger and what they're going through, and they're processing it. So then they can go back at a later time more level headed, and you can talk through it. And, you know, that's okay too. And, you know, you don't always have that space, and, you know, maybe sometimes it's better just to go to hash it out, even if it's messy. But it can look different ways at different times.
Right. You could trust that the love's still there, or like, let's say you communicate like, okay, hey, when you ask, like, I need some space, can you also say I love you real quick? You know, and then right. And now at that point, it's like, how ridiculous do you want to get? Like,
I love you, but right now I don't like you.
I'm like, can I get a recording of you telling me I love you 100 times? That way, when you're away from me, I can remember still. You know, like there's so many spaces in there. It could get like so silly. But yeah, again, like, it's in that trust again that, like, this person loves me. They're simply asking for space.
Right. And yeah, I've loved learning about like attachment styles. You know, I had a anxious attachment, so I want to draw close, and then other people, you know, it's so funny how you're often drawn to the opposite. So then the detachment style, and they want to like pull away, and how can you come together and grow in the secure attachment style?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I even think then that once you get into that space, it still fluctuates. You just want to make that the default home, which requires time. Like when I talk about the behaviors and ways of thinking and how I'm trying to extend grace to myself as I'm trying to make these changes, and believe that positive current is coming. Like, the fact is that the thoughts and the behaviors that I've engaged in, that I'm trying to change, could have been there for 10, 12, 15 years. And yeah, it's going to be difficult to, like, now construct new ways of thinking. This is where better late than never kind of works out. But the idea is that, like, I can still give 10 or 15 years of my life to create new default programming and still have another 20 years to live. And so, like, I believe that this current is coming, and I'm grateful that it came now. And I have to give myself grace on the fact that these things do not change overnight. And so,
and then also, you know, life is a spiral. So we may have dealt with these issues, but then they crop up in a deeper layer somewhere else, and doesn't mean that we haven't dealt with them. It's just a new level, a new layer. So we're not going backwards. We're just dealing with another layer of it.
Yeah, and hopefully you have done enough practice that even if a flare up happens, the amount of time that exists shortens.
Yes,
and it's like played with almost like a mold.
Like, oh, here it is again.
Yeah,
you can like have fun with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like
There's my ego.
that's been a goal of mine before, because like sometimes one thing leads to a snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
And now, the worst like the craziest snowball in my life that maybe didn't cause as big of an explosion, or with this particular relationship, that like it was 4 years where I did absolutely nothing, because it was just compounding things one after another, that I just kind of gave up. And when you like live like in like monotony, and like you're just not even thinking, there's no positive, it's like time goes by like that. Before I knew it, 4 years had passed by. So yeah, I just think there's the process is so like, after that, the goal was like, okay, if I go into another space, can I turn it into 2 years? And then like if I go into another space, can I turn it into like 1 year?
Yeah.
And then the goal is like, okay, can I turn that now into like, at worst a couple of hours?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've seen that dwindle, which again like gives me that much more faith that like I'm doing this. It's happening. I'm in the process. And I go back to like my word for 2025 is alignment. But there was this I was with a gathering of friends, and we kind of brought these words that we had together, and we created a toast, and we called the toast Brave Steps. And the goal for this year is to take brave steps towards my alignment. So
yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, sometimes people think about unconditional love, and they think about that. Well, that means that there should, be no boundaries or consequences or blah, blah, blah. But it's like, if you truly love someone, sometimes they need to experience consequences, or, we need to protect ourselves or protect others, or like, sometimes the hard time things are what they need. And that could be the same for us. Sometimes we have to face the consequences or stuff like that.
And those consequences of this particular thing suck. And it's totally okay. I've said a lot. I've done a lot of what I've needed to say, or done a lot of what I need to done, like what I would consider to be the spirit realm. And so I'm okay with how things look like while still maintaining hope in certain things. And hope's a tricky one too, because sometimes hope turns into expectation as well.
Yeah, I think one flavor of that sometimes is like forgiveness. Like sometimes, like what I've learned about forgiveness is it doesn't require, for me to forgive someone else, doesn't require them to do anything or them to change or them to ask for it. It's just something that I choose to take, and however they are, and that actually like frees me up, and they can, depending on the relationship, they can sense or feel that, and that potentially could change them, but
yes,
it could not. But that's the thing of forgiveness. It's not about expectations or how they act.
Yeah. And speaking of forgiveness, I think that gets into the final the final section, which is my like thank you section, where I go, thank you, unconditional love. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you for your forgiving and not forgetting. That's my favorite line. That's my favorite line in that one, because so often do people, at least in the way that I see it, believe that with forgiveness comes the asking of forgetting. And that's so not true.
That takes away the power. It's like if you forget, like you're losing the power of forget. It's not forgiveness, it's just forgetting, But if you remember the hard thing but still forgive, that's even more powerful. That's truly forgiving.
Yes. And that's why, like, when I say thank you, like that line, I just try to say a little bit differently, because I'm so happy that I want you to remember. I'm not asking that. And it's that forgiveness that you're extending to me that's absolutely healing. Again, like what you were saying, like you can make the choice to forgive, and there's no really expectations from like what you want from the other person. But if you're still acknowledging the love that you have for that person, you can't help but feel happy when you actually see that your love made a difference. When you see that your love like actually changed somebody. And it just makes it all feel so much more real. And again, like that's one of my biggest goals when I in releasing this poem, and when it inevitably gets to her ears, that like that love was so real. And this is my promise to you that I changed for the better. And not only am I sorry, but I'll forever love you. You know, and so the final line, I'll peel back the curtain again because this is another coded line. I sing, if I got it, your unconditional love brought it. You know, the actual line is a lyric that comes from a song. Aaron Frazier, who is the drummer from Duran Jones and the Indications, he did a solo project and released his first album in 2021 called Introducing Aaron Frazier. And one of the songs on the album is If I Got It, Your Love Brought It. And when I had first heard that song, which is a funky jam, so good, as soon as I heard it, I knew it spoke of this woman and my relationship with her. And when we got to see it live at ACL, I remember I felt so validated because it was my favorite song on the album, and it took a while for it to become everybody else's. But I was validated because he ended his set with this song, and when he played it, I ran to her. I grabbed her by her hand, and I pulled her to the back of the crowd. And we're having this magical moment where I'm like singing to her, and I'm dancing around her, and I'm frolicking with her, and I'm spinning with her. And when I call back that line to call back that memory, because I know that in that moment we were both in full belief of how much love we had for each other, and I sing it because that relationship with her makes me want to sing. So I sing, if I got it. I put unconditional love. It's unconditional love that brought it. But yeah, it's a beautiful callback to end it, because it gives the rhyme, but it also gives like the overall theme of the poem itself, and it gives
the essence of everything summed up in one little experience in line.
Yeah, while like spreading an artist that I also love, and a song that truly meant something to me, and a memory that runs so deep. So again, how cool is it that there's so many parts of it that it's coded, that only one person can fully receive. And even if me telling you, you get a little bit more, right? But
I don't get the full picture.
You don't get the full.
Yeah.
I'm proud of this one, man.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's the beauty of writing, is that you're being vulnerable and you're sharing your heart, but it's also secret in your own experiences and what that fully meant, and that's special, and that's just what you can totally understand and grasp.
Dude, I'm so proud of this one, man. I'm so proud of this.
Good job,
dude. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for giving me the platform, man. I'm like I said, this is a big week for me. I'm performing it live at Aerial Atmosphere on Saturday, and I'm gonna have a full crowd, you know, and there's gonna be that much more energy when I ask the crowd to ask me what is unconditional love, you know. And so this might be a little bit silly of an ask, but now that you know a little bit more behind it, and now that we've talked about it a little bit more, think we could do it again?
Do
the poem again?
A poem? Yeah, go for it. That great ending.
Right? Wouldn't that be cool? Okay. Let me take a breath here.
What is unconditional love?
Threatening, because it's drawn to you. It's drawn to you because it is you. Sometimes you need to be reminded so it reveals itself through another person. This is where projections can present themselves. You feel threatened by this messenger of love, and you say things that you don't mean, or rather, you say things that you mean to say to yourself. The gift here is the opportunity to be unafraid of the deepest parts of love from others, and most importantly, from yourself.
What is unconditional love?
It's educational because it's a mirror. It reflects your shortcomings and gives you the opportunity to explore your mind and your heart. Oftentimes in its presence, you won't like what you think you are, and without the proper tools to acknowledge and process, it can be triggering. Nonetheless, a person with clear intentions of being good in the ways that they feel the most aligned will ultimately feel gratitude for getting to see the sublime truth that who they've been, who they are, and who they can be are all one. You. The lesson is to welcome change.
What is unconditional love?
Happy. It's happy to be the space in which you feel the most comfortable showing the ugliest parts of you. It believes in you because it sees the goodness in you. It knows you are goodness. It shines a light over all of your darkness. You felt it before, a something or someone that you want to be better for. Unconditional love asks you to be happy, not superficially happy, but truly happy. It asks you to embrace grace.
What is unconditional love?
Boundaries. It's counterintuitive, I know, but when healthy, boundaries convey an inner knowing of oneself. It is comfortable and strong enough in its own knowing of what it can provide and sustain. They require a healthy self-love, respect, and discipline to erect and maintain. It may seem like a separation is occurring, but that's a trick. And the beauty of it, you get to realize that love can still be received and given even when it doesn't look or feel like it. The gift here is a lesson in the fact that love permeates through all. So thank you, unconditional love. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you for your forgiving and not forgetting. Thank you for showing me who I am and believing in me. Because if I got it, it's unconditional love that brought it, baby. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, Ozzie. I really enjoyed the conversation. A lot of great nuggets of wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hell yeah, Kendall. Good shit.